menu outside and saying, this place looks pretty cool. Check it out. Let's walk in there and see what's going on. All right. What if, just as a hypothetical, what if the universe is a living, organic being? What if that is the bottom line of what's going on? Well, there's a variety of esoteric philosophies that tell us that, and actually, we now have scientific evidence that the universe is a life form. Now, what does that make us? This represents the largest perceptual shift in the history of human civilization. You could say that the biggest perceptual shift was realizing that the Earth isn't flat, that the Earth is actually round, that you're not just going to sail off the edge, and that the people in America are not Indians because you went all the way over to India. Okay, that's a big one, right? Copernican revolution. He says the sun is the center of the solar system. Up until then, he said, I don't know, there's all this stuff moving around in the sky, but we're right here, we're fine. Right? Oh my gosh, wait a minute, the sun's sitting still, we're the ones moving around. What about the perceptual shift that instead of life being this one little thing that only happened here in this one precious little garden in the corner of the universe, and aren't we lucky it was random explosion, Darwin, something happened. Totally accidental, man. I don't know. Just, there it was. Aren't we lucky now? No. Listen. You take DNA. You probably heard this on my videos, but some of you haven't, and so it's worth repeating because it's a very important data point. And of course, I got to bring out the water bottle again because it's my only prop right now. I use my environment. You got a DNA molecule sitting there in the lab, and then you shine a laser beam at the DNA molecule. Okay, that's what you got. You got a DNA molecule, and you hit it with light. What do you think happens to the light around the DNA? What should happen based on what you would hear in a high school science class or even a college university? What should happen based on conventional understanding? Nothing. Light just scatters all around the room. However, in the early 1980s, which was published in 1984, Dr. Peter Garyaev did that. He stuck DNA in a little room and hit it with light. And what he found was that the DNA eats light. It absorbs light. It actually soaks it up like a sponge, as if there is a gravitational attraction. That's something you don't usually hear. And I will argue that there is a very important reason why you don't hear this. Now, it was replicated over and over again. It's called the DNA phantom effect. But what if the powers that were, not the powers that be, that's right, some of you are paying attention. What did he just say? Powers that what? What if the powers that were don't want you to know that your body and its health is primarily light dependent? What would that do for you? Well, it explains the placebo effect. As it turns out, a scientist in the 1970s, Dr. Fritz Albert Popp, was studying cancer, and he wanted to find out what makes something cause cancer. Carcinogen. Now that's the holy grail of medical science, because we probably all know somebody who's in the Matrix and who died in the Matrix from cancer. Because they're not eating healthy and they're not, taking good care of themselves, or it's just this horrible, seemingly random thing that happens. He looks at all different kinds of things that could possibly be carcinogenic. Is it an acid? Is it a base? What's the melting point? What's the freezing point? Chemical composition, does it have a benzene ring? Does it do that? Well, some of them, benzenes do cause cancer, but some carcinogens don't have benzene in them. Okay, shoot, and he spends years working on this. Finally, one night, you can probably imagine the scene. He's had like 17 beers. He's practically fallen off the table. He says, all right, let's try an idea. Let's one more idea. Let's think of something. All right, what if I take light and I shoot it at the carcinogen? You see where this is going, right? Then he falls off the table, but the next morning he actually remembered. He didn't black out. And he shoots light at the carcinogens, and pretty soon he figured out that all carcinogens scramble a certain frequency of light. What? Think about what I just said. We just cured cancer in the 1970s. If you know this, you have the answer. And that is huge. If the business of the pharmaceutical company was to get you well, why the hell did something that was discovered 40 years ago not become common public knowledge? Because it's not about keeping you healthy, obviously. 380 is the magic number. 380 nanometers, which is ultraviolet light. It's not quite visible. Guess where our best source of ultraviolet light comes from? Right up there. What do they tell you? Oh my God, if you go out in the sun without sunscreen on, you're going to get skin cancer. They don't want you to get the ultraviolet light. If you consider what this really means, okay, so light at 380 nanometers is scrambled by the carcinogen. It scrambles it up. That means the 380 nanometer light is destroyed. It never makes it into the DNA. And what did I just tell you about DNA before? When you put it in a little room and you hit it with light, what happens? Light goes in. Laser light, which is what he was using, is ultraviolet. There's a lot of ultraviolet in it. It's not all ultraviolet, but it's coherent light, so it's got a full spectrum. Okay, so now follow this with me.